Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Roker Rapport. My name's Damian and I'm joined tonight by some of the lads from the Roker Report, namely Michael, Gav and Tom. How is everybody today?
Very good, cheers.
Canny, no complaints.
No complaints. Are you all bursting with youthful exuberance at the prospect of Premier League football again?
Are you talking next season or this season?
Well, I don't think we should get that far ahead of ourselves. No guarantee of that. So, how's everyone feeling? Transfer window, I suppose we should start with. What's the squad looking like?
I mean, certainly the squad. Well, actually, I think apart from up front, I don't think the squad's at a crisis point, so to speak. I think that maybe we could do with an extra goalkeeper and so on. You got Jordan Pickford there as well. Defence, I think, looks okay, albeit maybe we could do with another left back to challenge Van Aanholt. But I suppose you're never going to get every single position that needs adequately covering, are you? Especially
we can't really get a lot of left backs at Sunderland, can we? That's a tradition. We have trouble filling that role.
Let alone since the days of Michael Gray, really, haven't we? We haven't had a top-notch player since then.
I think PVA's doing all right. To be fair, I think he's come along in leaps and bounds, especially under Allardyce.
Well, yeah. He proved at the end. He proved it back in the last season. He's not a terrible fullback. He can actually defend when he wants to.
That's true. Going forward, not so bad. It'd be interesting to play him on the wing, you know. If we actually had more than one left back, I'd be very interested to see how he plays in a more forward role.
His end product is absolutely superb for a left back.
Well, he scored a cracking goal, didn't he?
Absolutely top notch. He puts in a good cross.
He really works for that one against.
Let's not forget, guys. He used to play on the wing as a youth as well, you know. And I think when he was over in Holland playing for Vitesse, he was a winger there as well. So it's the modern fullback, isn't it? They've got to be good going forward. And I think there's probably less onus on the defensive aspect of the game, which is where we're headed. But Sunderland really we can't afford to have passengers in our team, and he's had to step up a lot, especially since Sam Allardyce came in. Yeah. But you know, we all said at the start of the transfer window, you know, we would have preferred another left back, and we didn't get it. But you know, that's why we've got an academy, isn't it? We've got players like Tom Robson there, and if you know we need him, he is there and available, because the club are pretty reluctant to loan players out, and especially with the new rules, which I don't know if you were aware, but you can't. There are no 28-day loans now. I think it's either 6 month or a full season, and obviously with the club being as threadbare, you know, on the ground as we are, we can't really afford to loan anybody out. Not until maybe January when we reinforce again. So we're going to have an issue for a number of months, really, with getting these kids game time. And you know, the CFL Trophy malarkey, I don't know about you lot, but players like Tom Robson aren't really going to kick on a great amount playing against, you know, Rochdale's second string on a Tuesday night in front of 400 fans or whatever, you know. I think in January that's something to look at, you know, strengthening at the back again, even though we have signed so many defenders this transfer window.
Yeah, we're not running short of defenders as it stands. Certainly quality though still, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's really interesting hearing David Moyes speak about this season, because I know a lot of people said he's been pessimistic, or maybe that's why certain players didn't come, because he's already said, you know, realistically, it is going to be probably another struggle this season. But one thing I did find really telling, the interview after the City game, Moyes came out and said that when they questioned him about Gooch, why is Gooch in the team, when Lons and Kazri are on the bench, he said he wants a player who'll commit to the team and who'll run for the team and give for the team. So I think he's looking at the youth that we have at our disposal, and he's thinking, I've got a group of lads here who are going to put their heart on their sleeve, wear the badge with pride and try their best. I don't see the point in shelling out money on tidbit players again, wasting money. I'm going to give these guys a go. And for me, that's been like one really positive thing. Maybe the transfer window hasn't been as great as we all wanted, but it's been fantastic to see the likes of Gooch, Asoro, Pickford, Watmore really like take up a leadership role in the team. And Gooch has been quality, in my opinion.
I was going to say that certainly Gooch. Yeah. He's been fantastic. I mean, he doesn't look out of place in this league, not at all.
No, not at all.
Especially when you've got the issue of how many lack of players we've got. You would think the youngsters, they would prefer us to not be as threadbare, but they would probably say, get in, this is probably my chance. On the bright side, this is my chance to step up and make a claim for the first team, or try and challenge those in the first team. It's like we're saying with Van Aanholt earlier. The quick thing is that Josh, is it Josh Robson, the left back? I get confused with
Tom.
No, Tom.
Tom's the left back.
I get confused too.
Josh is the right back.
No, I mean, did he play at Watford at the end of last season?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I didn't think he did too badly, considering that was his. I mean, thankfully then there was nothing at stake, but obviously, one thing I'll say about the Van Aanholt thing is that, when you talk about the fullbacks, the situation where you've got Manquillo, who's probably going to be a bit more defensive anyway, and you've got two centre-backs, and Van Aanholt's probably the quickest guy within the squad, but in terms of the youngsters, it'll be nice just to see, like Tom said, just for us to actually give them a bit of a go, but really, it's a bit of a shame that it comes in a situation where we're kind of forced to, rather than with it being our choice, but then again, would they have ever got time?
I think they're very lucky, aren't they, the academy product at Sunderland, because they get a chance every 8 months or so. Really, it's quite interesting. You get a new manager in. Oh, brilliant! Another chance to see them again. So yeah, they get a lucky break in that regard. So I think we're quite. They're quite. Yeah, as I say, they're quite lucky. I don't think there's many academy products from many other teams who would have so many opportunities in the first team consistently.
Yeah, I mean, just another thing on Lyndon Gooch. Really, I think we've got to still, look at him as a kid and as a young player, and I think. He's played 3 different positions since the season started already for us, and as a result, he's had some indifferent performances. He's definitely worked hard, and I thought against Manchester City when he played left wing, that was probably his best game.
I'd agree.
But I mean, going forward, he's not really a central midfielder. He's never played there as a youngster, not for a string of games anyways. He was always a number 10 or a left-sided player, so obviously going forward you would like to think that with players back fit, and I think we've got a number of midfielders going to be back in the team in the next couple of weeks, that means that you can perhaps put him out on the left and give him a run of games in a position he's used to, because obviously I think you saw maybe in the Shrewsbury game and definitely at times in the Middlesbrough game when he was asked to play out of position that he's not comfortable doing jobs which aren't usually required of a left winger, which I know is understandable. He's a young player, and David Moyes is gonna maybe take him out when he isn't in good form. But I think overall you'll see that lad play a lot of football this year, which is obviously positive for our academy, because not since Henderson, Myler, and Colback have we actually gave kids a chance. So for me, I think we've got to start bringing these lads in on a more regular basis, but when it suits, not because Sunderland are desperate for players, and obviously coming out of the transfer window we seem to be pretty well equipped if everybody's fit, and that's a big if.
What would you say about the situation with Pickford and Mannone? Do you think he'll displace him?
Well, not for the next 3 months he won't. No, I get the point you mean, but I think it's a tough one. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel. I think at the start of the season I would have still stuck with Mannone, because I was not entirely sure Pickford was ready to make the step up for a full season yet. But you never know. He might have a blinding next 3 months, and then my opinion will be completely changed by that point. But for now, I think just to get another goalkeeper in was huge, because if we hadn't got Mika in, it probably would have been someone like Mark Schwarzer come in, because that would we now be down to like 2 goalkeepers if Mika hadn't come in, if you count that Matt Stryjek. Stryjek, thank you. My pronunciation's awful, but well, I mean, I think Pickford's going to be relatively assured of the number 1 spot for the next few months. Well, I say relatively, unless he has a string of bad performances, but
or an injury.
Well, he was slated, wasn't he? He was slated for the mistake he made, obviously, for the equaliser. That was a stupid mistake to make. You'd have expected him to get it. Any decent goalkeeper worth their salt, you'd think they'd get that. But similarly, I mean, when you look at Mannone, I mean, I saw him concede 16 goals in 3 games last year. So, and he still managed to get his spot back. So at the end of the day, and a lot of those, I mean, granted, a lot of those were our fault. Well, I say our fault; they were the rest of the outfield players' fault. But I think mistakes like that, especially when you consider his age and you consider the situation that we're in, it's forgivable. Do you know what I mean? And certainly his delivery is something that stands out.
I mean, people look at the fact that he made that one mistake, and probably because it gets the headlines because it cost 2 points. But apparently, I think he didn't do well for the rest of the game.
He did. I thought he did very well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
5 or 6 good saves, definitely.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game in its entirety, but I would know for a fact that Pickford would have been busy because Southampton, especially at home, like to pepper your opposition with shots and saves and everything. So, you know, but Pickford making mistakes, he'll get that at 21 or whatever age he is now. He'll improve that and learn from it, hopefully.
I will say this though. I mean, I could probably make a case for him being man of the match in that game if it wasn't for the error. He did play really well, and someone made a point to me that the games he played last season in January, he conceded a lot of goals. I think it was Tottenham and Arsenal. One was a cup game, one was a league game.
Yeah.
But he was probably man of the match in both, and I think that's kind of something we have to think about when judging him. The lad's obviously a talent. You know, he went away to Preston, which was really going to be a difficult club to join, just promoted out of League One, and also, you know, didn't come up with the best squad. Pickford was thrust straight into the picture there, and they actually had a great start of the season. I think he broke the clean sheet record.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Wasn't it 12 clean sheets or something like that?
Yeah. He had a number of direct assists as well, which obviously which are a huge part of his game. Well, I was at the Shrewsbury game, and I mean, generally in that game he looked pretty solid, which you would expect against a lower league team. But when we didn't really have an outlet in the game, he was always looking to get the ball forward into key positions, and obviously the goal was scored came from one of his kicks. And it was straight
to Watmore, wasn't it? And then Watmore onto Sienna's eye. So he's definitely not lacking in that ability.
Sorry,
Darren. Yeah.
I mean, he's probably over a season going to contribute more good than bad. You know, I've seen enough of him to think he's a good player, but we have to give him time. I mean, it wasn't a majority, but there were people who thought straight after that Southampton game that signing a keeper to replace Pickford was more of a priority than giving him a chance. And you know, I think even though he's such a young lad, he's obviously a very, very good goalkeeper. He comes very highly rated from a number of managers who've worked with him, especially Sam Allardyce and David Moyes, and obviously we as fans have to give these players time. Goalkeepers, you know, usually one mistake in 18 games will get them out of the team, because that's just the way things are. We've seen it plenty of times. You know, you make one mistake and suddenly your place is under threat. But in Jordan's case, although we've signed a goalkeeper who apparently was the top-rated goalkeeper in Portugal, Mika, I don't know. This season, he's stat-wise, he's up there in Portugal anyways. So he's obviously capable, but at the same time, Jordan's waited his whole life for this chance, and with Vito Minoni out of the team, I would say if I was David Moyes, I've got to look at it as 3 months where we can develop a player who's going to be very, very good, and you know, and let's be honest, probably make us a lot of money down the line. So you know,
that was probably a lot to do with why they brought in Mika, just to give him that continued run of competition and get the best out of him. On top of obviously, if he gets an injury, then we need another keeper, but. Yeah, it works both ways, doesn't it?
One thing I find really interesting about the whole issue is like David Moyes keeps bringing up this idea of bringing in players who are going to go on this journey. It's like 4 or 5 times he brings up this idea of we need an identity and we need a journey. I think Pickford's definitely one of those players who is going to be like a fulcrum of this journey. He's going to be like a key player. Like you said, not only will he have a massive resale value, but just how fantastic he has been, considering he's only 21, 22. We look at goalkeepers at about 30 as normally when we say they're in their like peak of their sort of time in the game. And at 22 to just march into a Premiership team and be an absolutely fantastic shot stopper have distribution that really adds another ball playing defender into your team, and to be just a generally good shot stopper and with a great command of his area, I think we really have something incredibly special in Jordan Pickford.
Potentially, until we sell him to Liverpool or something.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's from Fatfield. The lad's local. You know, he's always been a Sunderland fan. Wears his heart on his sleeve with how much he loves us. I really don't see in the next 3 years or so who'd turn his head. You know, I mean, unless some unbelievable offer comes in for him to go, or we leave the Premiership, I don't see him leaving. I think he honestly loves being here. He loves playing for the badge, and I just don't see him wanting to go.
Let's be honest though, as a football club, we don't make a lot of money back on players, and if anybody shows any interest in Jordan Pickford and comes along with good money, I don't think he'll have much of a choice, to be honest. I think it'll be a case of Sunderland need to sell players eventually to start, improving the financial side of the club, which we all know has been an issue this summer. We don't sell enough players for a value that's exceeding what we paid, and that was the case with Lamine Kone. If he'd left, we would have stood to make around £12 million in profit in 6 months. And although that didn't happen, if it had have happened, I can sort of see why that would be a good thing. And obviously, going forward, we're signing players who the club are hoping they're going to make money on. That's just the way of the world. Unfortunately, we aren't an elite club, and we have to get better year on year. And look at teams like Southampton, Swansea, and where they can spend money in areas where we can't, and people wonder why. And it's largely because they buy players who they make money on. Newcastle's another example. I think they actually turned a profit this summer despite selling off a lot of good players and replacing them with a lot of Championship players. Don't get us wrong, but there's another example of a club where they've made money on players which they bought relatively low, and Sunderland don't do that. So in the next 2 or 3 years, don't be surprised to see good players like Patrick Van Aanholt, Jordan Pickford, Kone leave the club for large sums, because fortunately that's what we're going to have to do if we're going to get any better.
I mean, it's the way it works, isn't it? But I think the problem with that would be it's not the way it used to be. Like, for example, if we'd managed to hold out for, say, 30 million for Kone, and he'd gone and we got that 30 million, what are we actually going to do with it? I think that was part of David Moyes' plan with why he held so desperately onto him, because it was like, right, at this stage in the transfer window, who can we possibly attract? I mean, what are we going to do? Get 2 centre-backs for that 30 million? Are we going to get 1 centre-back, hope that he's okay, and then go and put all of our money into a striker? Or I think you have to be as cautious as you are adventurous in the business world of football now.
Yeah, I think at the same time, though, if we had sold Kone for a big amount of price, then keeping Kabul if we'd kept Kabul, then selling Kone could have had a bit softened the blow a little bit. But the fact that we let Kabul go for a ridiculous fee, in my opinion, then keeping Kone was all the more essential, and not forgetting it was late in the window. Who could we really have got in to replace him? Who was at least going to be on a par with what he was like? I mean,
Paddy McNair.
I don't think we should. I mean, yeah, exactly.
No, don't defend him. Come on.
I'm just joking.
I still think it's early to judge McNair.
Yeah, but, it is. I think it's early to judge any of them, isn't it?
I've seen people say that Paddy McNair and Donald Love, for instance, say I've seen nothing to say that they're going to be good players. What, after 2 games? Yeah, does everyone conveniently forget Kirchhoff's debut?
Yeah,
I will never forget Kirchhoff's debut.
Don't get me wrong. I'm just pulling you. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that McNair is going to turn into the player that Kirchhoff's displayed he can be, but because that argument will be used every time. But come on, 2-3 games, get real.
Well, moving on to things like that. No, sorry, go on, Gavin. Come on.
Sorry, it was just a quick point, really. I mean, I've just made a point about giving Jordan Pickford time to develop. Mm-hmm. Although these lads didn't come through our academy, I think because we've spent such a it's still a large amount of money. I know people don't, in football especially, don't see 1 million and 5 million as big sums, but they are, and you've still got to give these lads time to kind of develop. I think that obviously now that we're getting players back fit, they can step out the limelight, maybe get used to the surroundings and come back in when they're needed and maybe show what they're worth, because you don't, at the end of the day, McNair played a fair bit of football at one point for Man United, and he must have been all right or he wouldn't have got game time. So I'm kind of holding out to hope that once he's settled he'll be a good player for us, but yeah, let's not judge yet.
It seems Moyes feels he's got a bargain, doesn't it? It feels like that 6 million for McNair and Love, the way it happened so quickly, and it was just bish bash done. That was it. You're in the club. You're starting as well. I mean, obviously injury problems forced his hand, but he certainly has a lot of expectations from those two. Otherwise he wouldn't have bothered.
Not to mention the fact, I mean, I know Donald Love's looked a bit. Well, I mean, I personally thought Donald Love played okay at Man City, but then there's a game subsequent. You could tell he looked a bundle of nerves against Borough, and against Shrewsbury wasn't that great. But at the same time, it's like Gavin said with McNair for Man United. there must have been something at Donald Love if he was at Man United in the first place. He couldn't have gone in there and been an absolute mug and been at Man United for no reason whatsoever. There would have been something there. Is something there, I should say.
What's really interesting about McNair, I have a few pals who are from Northern Ireland, and they love him. They think he's great. He's very calm on the ball, very aware of what's going on. They personally think he's kind of in that Johnny Evans kind of mould of being an intelligent ball-playing defender. Whether or not he's capable enough to be a central midfielder, I think still a question mark, in all honesty. But I definitely think as a squad player, he's a great addition, to be honest. Like Gav said, he's played a fair chunk of time at Man United, especially under that, I think it was Van Gaal when he had that injury crisis for about 3 or 4 months. McNair played a lot of time and he didn't look out of place in that United squad. I mean, they were struggling, guarantee that there's going to be pressure on him there, but in all reality, he looked an able replacement considering the crisis that they had.
Yeah, weren't some of Man United fans a bit upset to see McNair go as well?
There might have been. I didn't see anyone who was chuffed about it, but
yeah, I mean, there was a few I've seen who weren't particularly pleased that McNair left. So, the time will tell what happens with that, whether it's actually a good signing or not. But I think I would elaborate on Tom's point that for squad players, that's what they're meant to be at this point in time. It's like I said, when Middlesbrough beat us, it was like, boo-hoo, you beat a team that had 5 reserve players in it. It's like, great, whoop-de-doo.
But, happy days, eh?
That's what yeah.
On that note, talking about transfers and things, I suppose the two key transfers, or the ones that have drummed up the most interest, media interest, or public interest even, Victor Anichebe. How are we feeling about that? A resounding yes, it's awesome.
I think we have to kind of judge this transfer completely different to everyone we've made this summer, including Stephen Pienaar, because he's obviously been given a role in the team from the start. Yeah, I mean, Victor Anichebe is there kind of in the same role as Mika in a way. He's there if he's needed, he's an option, but don't expect to see a lot of him. I think people were spitting feathers when he signed that, this is Defoe's backup and we're gonna have no chance of his playing games. But at the same time, we just need somebody there to give us options, and he does offer something totally different to every other striker we've got. He's a big lad, he holds the ball up well, he's not slow, he's certainly not slow, he's pretty quick, and with his back to goal he can bring players into games. But you're not going to see a lot of football from Victor Anichebe this season because he's already shown over his career he struggles to stay fit. He doesn't play a lot of full games, particularly he didn't at West Brom. So let's just see what happens with him. I don't think it really matters if he's a success here or not, because if he isn't, then he's going to leave at the end of the season anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's only a short-term contract, isn't it? It's only a year.
Got nothing to lose by it either. It's a free transfer, and to be honest, I would have been very surprised if we didn't make that signing, to tell you the truth, because I think Moyes apparently said that even if we've already bought a striker, he probably would have got him for Anichebe anyway. And to me, it makes sense. Free transfer, work with him at Everton. Like Gav said, he offers something completely different. He's physical, powerful up front. That's if he can stay fit. But to be honest, if he's not Josie Altidore, then it's already a success. Put it there.
Well, he did set the bar pretty low with him. I don't know if anyone heard his interview with Nick Barnes on BBC Newcastle when it was a couple of days after he signed, and I think Nick was keen to get some answers on just what kind of role Anichebe will be playing here, and Moyes, pretty much spelled it out. He wasn't our first choice. He was always in the back of his mind, and if he does play games, it's going to be coming off the bench or in cup games. He said that straight out, and Moyes has been very honest with his press conferences.
Almost. You know what I mean? It's like a sledgehammer honesty, isn't it? It's like kicking the teeth every time he speaks.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, because we've been clamouring for the club to be honest with us for years, and I think we've definitely seen a change this summer where, even putting out statements to tell us that David Santon failed a medical, things like that. There's people who will never be happy with what the club do, but at the end of the day, right now we're in a position where the club are being brutally honest on everything from the manager, up, and people don't want to hear negativity. I've heard a lot of people say that David Moyes is a negative man, but maybe he is, but he's being honest, and I'd rather he was being honest with us, telling us where we were at, and we can work from there, you know. And if in a year's time he's telling us that we're gonna sign players which are going to get us in the mid-table, then great, you know what I mean. That means he's kept us up, because after the summer we've had, I think anyone would be daft to expect anything less than another relegation battle, and that's just me being honest, to be honest. So
what's great about Moyes jumping straight onto Gav's idea is like the honesty straight away. We have this sort of mutual trust with David Moyes that we just know, no matter how bad the situation, at least he's going to give it to us straight, you know. And I think definitely agree with Gav that that's absolutely fantastic. And what's even sort of piggybacking on that idea, what's also great is I think people like Victor and Nietzsche need to hear that. I think they need to hear that they aren't guaranteed a place, that they, you know, we've got Joel Osoro, we've got Jermaine Defoe, we've got Barini when he comes back. If Victor Anichebe isn't guaranteed a place, Moyes got some absolute fantastic qualities out of him that I've never seen since he moved on from Everton. And it was a hefty sum that he commanded. I think it was $6 million he went to West Brom for. So there's definitely something there that people see that is you know, warranting a big money move. And I honestly think David Moyes is the man who can get it back out of him again. Just looking at Jack Rodwell this season, never been a massive fan of Rodwell, and still hasn't done a great deal to convince me that he's this £10 million player that we splashed the cash on. But there are definitely signs from the first 2 to 3 games this year that Jack Rodwell is reborn under Moyes again. You know, he's tidy on the ball, his commitment's back there. I think David Moyes, much like every other famous Glaswegian manager that's ever existed, is just such a fantastic manager that he brings out the best quality in people. And kind of summing this up lovely is the fact that he does that because we have this trust, this innate trust, because he's so honest with us.
I mean, he's got nothing. I suppose Moyes, in a way, probably could benefit from being more assertive with fans and being a bit more honest, because, I mean, you compare his last job in the Premier League, Man United, to Sunderland, to me, this is the type of job that Moyes will probably excel at more so. And one thing I've noticed is that, I mean, this might be me looking into it too much, but when he was at Everton, when Everton used to play the big teams, I got the sense that Moyes, just from watching his teams play, Moyes thrived off being, look at us, we're the underdog taking on the big teams and we'll show what we're really about. You know, there's a couple of times Everton would play Manchester City, for instance, and absolutely love it, because a couple of times they bossed them, especially at Goodison. Whereas if the onus was on, I think where Moyes probably could struggle is against teams where he's the giant, so to speak, for a lack of a better phrase, and the team he's playing is the underdog. But I mean, I do elaborate on the point you two made. I think the one quiff I might have with the honesty is the fact that he did say we're in a relegation fight 2 games in. I don't have a problem that he said it, because I think we will be in one. But I think if he had to say that possibly could have waited until after the transfer window. But to say otherwise would have been frankly deluded. We probably are going to be another relegation fight this season, so unfortunately.
Yeah, he certainly pulls no punches. That's something that's admirable, I suppose. It's better than, I mean, and as you said about his last Premier League job as manager of Man U, I mean, those expectations are just astronomical, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Like any manager who goes into that job. I mean, you can look at Mourinho now, obviously after the derby, and they got beaten. It was typical Mourinho. It was down to the referees' decisions, blah blah blah. Oh, yeah. But it won't be long. There'll be a year max before they chew him up and spit him out, because that's the sort of fan base they have.
And not to mention, when Moyes went to Man United, let's not forget, he just went after Ferguson retired.
Impossible job. Impossible job.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I'm pretty sure, unlike Man United fans, we won't turn against him after 2 games and then demand him out after 6 months.
Oh,
so.
No.
I don't know.
Okay, I hope not.
Well, put it this way though, he is lowering our expectations in what he says, and that's one thing that we're not really going to be able to level at him. Is that he's underperforming, because I mean, if 20 games into the season we're struggling, he did tell us this at the start of the season. And if we're not struggling, then great. We're outdoing ourselves, and I'm not saying football fans are idiots, but we've been told this from the manager of our football club, and if after 10-15 games we're sitting in the middle of the table and we seem to be comfortably winning games at home, picking up draws away, which is, to be honest, that's my expectation for this season. If we're going to stay up, our home form has to improve, because probably not since we finished 10th under Bruce and Roy Keane was here, have we had any sort of is the Stadium like been somewhere where teams come and struggle? I can remember pretty much every home game manager speaking in the press conferences before games, talking about how the Stadium of Light is a tough place to go. Nobody says that anymore, and I think that's one thing we've got to change this year. And I think Moyes did say it the other day in his press conference that he needs to change the identity of the club. First things first, make Stadium of Light a difficult place to come, and on top of that, when we go away from home, make ourselves hard to beat. So for me, the transfer window was overall a big reflection on David Moyes as a manager. He's bought players he knows. He's bought steady players that aren't going to let him down. Players like Stephen Pienaar, he knows aren't going to let him down if he puts him in the team. And really, those are the type of players which you'd expect to see us through at the end of the season and say stay up, hopefully with a lot more time. And I know people are going to shoot down what I'm saying. That I'm saying our target is to stay up in the Premier League, but unfortunately it is this year because of just the way everything changed over the summer. Our transfer window plans were ripped up, and my manager left. Any other team in the league had the transfer window in the summer we'd be talking about them being relegation contenders. I'm sorry, but just because Sutton are my club, I'm not going to change my thoughts on that. So,
and Gav, I think as well, financially, mate, we would struggle to stay in this league with the finances we have. We desperately need to stay up to keep our finances breaking even, pretty much.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, we aren't selling players for more than we're paid for them, so as a result it makes every transfer window which follows harder, and even this summer really we've let one of our biggest signings ever really, which was Jermaine Lens last season for what was an 8-figure sum. He's went out on loan to another team outside of England for a loan fee which probably is nowhere near what we're paid for him, and if he goes at the end of the season it's going to be nowhere near what we're paid for him because he's nearing his 30s and he's expendable at something and nobody really expects him to stay anymore, do they? So we're not going to receive a big amount of money for Jermaine Lens next year, and there's another player we've spent big on and we're not going to make a lot of money on. So after this summer, we've got to kind of reflect every year now and say, right, where can we make changes that's not going to harm the team too much, and where I'm looking quite far ahead here, but where can we make changes that are for the overall benefit of the club going forward are going to be positives. And I think I've said it a few times tonight already, we're looking at signing players which for the sums that are coming in will eventually make us money, and that's obviously comes hand in hand with having a good season. We can't just expect to sign players like Jan Kirchhoff for 750,000 and then he's just going to be a total bargain, but come the end of the season hopefully he's got a new contract, and then that gives us some sort of security, because push comes to shove and he does leave the club eventually, it means that we'll have some sort of security on the fee that we get. And I'm not being negative saying that, I just think that's being realistic. That's the way things are these days.
Admittedly for me though, it is a bit of a concern that Kirchhoff contract hasn't been sorted yet. It is. I am getting a little bit worried about that, but I mean, I'd like to hope he features in Moyes' plans. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I can understand not doing it during the window because, I'll be fair to Moyes, I think he's done very well considering everything he's had to put up with since he's come into the club. When you've got your best player / agent trying to screw the club over, whatever, people can read into that what they want, but he had Kabul leaving at the last minute, 50 injuries to the first team, and so on. But exactly, and probably more so. What it feels like it anyway, but I do think that the Kirchhoff and as well the Cornet contract, if you can get Kirchhoff and Cornet tied down to new deals for the club going forward, that is a huge boost. And it's certainly
that'll be a big week. Well, this week coming will be a big week in that regard. I think if he's going to do it, he'll tie down the Cornet contract, he'll tie down the Kirchhoff contract. Kirchhoff's not going anywhere really, is he? I think he's with us for at least a couple of years.
I think he has like a lot of respect for us as a club on taking a gamble on him, and I think I would love to think this anyway. Maybe I'm just being really optimistic, but I would love it if he repaid us with a contract. He might go for 15 million in a year or two, but it would be fantastic if he could repay us with a contract, because he did nothing at Bayern. in all honesty. And for us to come in and give him, a decent deal for the interim and for him to prove his worth, I would love it if he could reward us with some more of his time, because he is an absolutely magnificent player. Just to watch him on the pitch at times, it's absolutely magical. He seems to know where everybody is. He knows what's around him. Obviously, barring that Tottenham disaster where he's thrown in at the last minute, he's just been absolutely superb. We haven't had players like that since the like of Don Hutchinson, Stefan Schwartz. Those are the kind of players where I would hold him at that level. He can dictate a game, and we haven't had that for so long. And bringing Didier, sorry, go on, Government.
No, carry on, mate.
I'm just saying, if we can bring Didier and Dong in as well, who offers something at the other end of the pitch, we have this big, relatively strong, gangly, quick, harassing style of play. If we can bring him in, it brings this balance that I really feel we've lacked for so many years. Since again, going back to Hutchinson and Quinn, that idea that we can have someone who can harass the defenders, gives more time to the likes of Jan Kirchhoff to actually pull the strings from deeper. And I honestly I hope, I pray, whatever, any deity out there who's listening, answer these prayers. I believe actually that David Moyes can get that squad to play that way.
Well, he's certainly got a lot of faith in Dong, hasn't he? Otherwise, I mean, the whole club must have, with the scouting staff and things like that. For the amount we paid for him, broke our record, didn't we?
Yeah, I think with him, with Dong, I know we haven't spoke much at all about him yet tonight, but I don't know if he's a player that comes from David Moyes' scouting network or the one that he took over. I think the fact that we've took a gamble on a kid from a fairly low French team, Lorient aren't a top 10 Ligue 1 side, and he's come here for what's believed to be a club record fee, and that doesn't smack me as a transfer with just took a panic on really, and I think the Lorient president did explain that Sunderland have been in from all summer, which shocked a few people, because if you read the local press over in Newcastle there, they kind of gave off the impression that Sunderland had just panicked throwing money at this player, when in fact it was confirmed by the president of the club he came from that this is somebody we've been chasing for a long time. They didn't really want to sell him. We've come in with pretty much an offer they can't refuse, and as a result they've accepted it, and the Lorient fans are kind of wondering where the money's going, but that's nothing to do with us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I noticed that there's quite a few Lorient fans who are gutted that we got him.
Yeah, well, that's always a positive, isn't it? I would be more worried if they were telling us he wasn't worth what we paid. I know I did speak to a guy, I forget his name escapes, but he was a French journalist, about Didier and Dong, and he told me that he maybe isn't worth what we've paid right now, but he could be worth that at the end of the season. And I think, again, this is another player Sunderland are taking a gamble on, where maybe, just maybe, in a couple of years he could make us some money. And I think it's kind of the in thing in the Premier League now, especially after Leicester won the Premier League. They're the commanding centre midfield ball winner with pace, who gets around pretty much every inch of the pitch and wins the ball back wherever he's needed to. I think if he's going to be that type of player for us, that's something we were sorely lacking last season even. I don't think Jan and Villa was that type of midfielder. I thought he sat deep and won the ball in front of the defence. We didn't have a midfielder who sprinted around the pitch, won the ball back wherever he was needed, and put a foot in as well. Lee Cattermole tends to do that, but he's not particularly quick. So if he's an upgrade on Cattermole, or even an upgrade on Envia, then we'll be laughing really, wouldn't we? Let's be honest.
If you put it in a perspective, Jeff Hendrick commanded a £10.5 million fee.
Yeah.
A championship midfielder commanded £10.5 million. We've spent, there's a million and one different reports saying how much we spent, but I think the initial outlay is at least £13 million. So we spent a couple of million more on a player who has European experience, and he's played in a different league. He's played in different cultures. He has a total different style of play to the likes of Jeff Hendrick, which we have that kind of player in Kirchhoff and Cattermole. I don't see it as a bad deal. I really don't. I know a lot of people say that we're throwing money around. It's silly. We didn't know what we're getting. I think it's up to him now, isn't it? Like this idea of time we keep coming back to. We just got to give him time to show us how good a player he is, and we need to send a bouquet of flowers, some red wine, and a box of croissants to the Federation of French Football.
We should just have a florist, shouldn't we? We should just have a florist at the stadium, and like for anyone who's nice to us, send them some flowers down next to the box office.
We did that with the Cat's Misses, didn't we? So I'm surprised we didn't do that.
Clearly not enough flowers.
Sorry, one more point on Ndong as well. I think, because of the injuries that we've got, he's going to be expected to make an impact pretty much straight away. And I know he is available for Monday. I don't think he'll play in the game. Maybe after the fact of the matter, I might be proven wrong, but I don't think he'll start. But I think generally speaking, because Lee Cattermole's maybe 3-4 weeks off, I know he's back training, but he's had a pretty. Well, he's had surgery, hasn't he? So he could be a few weeks off. Then we've got Seb Lars now for the season. Jack Rodwell and Jan Kirchhoff have patchy injury history, which means you're going to see a lot of this lad this season. And generally speaking, he's going to be expected to play a fair amount of football. And I just hope I hope he isn't phased. I hope he's ready to come straight in. He seems to say all the right things, which all players seem to do.
He seems to have that personality, doesn't he, as well, that he brings with him.
Yeah, well, we were told he's a bit reckless and he picks up a lot of yellow cards. But I mean, what it does tell us is that he's enthusiastic and he isn't scared to he doesn't go hiding.
Perfect club for him, really, if he likes getting yellow cards. That's what we like to see, isn't it? As long as you get stuck in.
To be fair, being serious though, what better player to teach him how to be more disciplined on the pitch than Lee Cattermole? Because there's a man who picked up yellow cards for fun for years and then all of a sudden found a way of playing where he wasn't booked every week, which is kind of, maybe from what we're reading anyways, I've read a fair bit from French journalists about Ndong, and they're all telling us he's a good player, but he needs to he needs to calm down and stop picking up so many yellow cards. And if he, the Premier League's notoriously famous for having referees who aren't scared to be card happy, and I think if he's gonna be a success here, he has to nip that in the bud pretty much straight away, doesn't he? So
particularly with the new rules, obviously, that's going to be a bit difficult for him.
To be fair, we were told the same thing about Jan and Veer a year ago, and look what happened there. So it just goes to show you. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that was with Lee Cattermole, that he obviously.
Why did you have to bring up Jan and Veer? I was feeling really nice and happy with the way things were going, and then you said that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go top myself now, and you can finish the podcast by yourself.
So Cattermole, it's like I've said, it's the fact that it's funny how we can see this as Sunderland fans. That when everyone who isn't a Sunderland fan looks at Cattermole, they always go, "Oh, gets booked every single game." When the last couple of years, I think he's been magnificent.
Well, he's got that reputation as a thug from most armchair pundits, and pretty much anyone who isn't a Sunderland fan who doesn't watch him play week in, week out. That's what he's known as.
Yeah, and elaborating on Gavin's point is the fact that Ndong, I think, is, to me, I could be reading it in this wrong. I mean, if Gav's read more about Ndong, you might know a little bit more than me, but I would imagine that Ndong's signed to be that a bit like Marwan Fellaini, except without a mop head.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I was going to say, have you seen his hair?
Dodgy hairdo.
Big, aggressive midfielder, but good talent. I don't know. There's some attributes that strike it a little bit similar to me. And if you've got Kirchhoff and Cattermole sitting deep anyway, I can't imagine Ndong being a deep midfielder anyway. Anyway, might be wrong in a few months. But
to be honest with you, I think you're gonna. He isn't the biggest. He's not small by any means, but he isn't the biggest. He isn't physically big. But so he's not going to score you a great amount of goals from set pieces and so on. But he's from what I gather, he's a ball winner who likes to get around the pitch. I don't think Sunderland have had a player like that for a long time. Although Lee Cattermole is a ball winner, he doesn't have the turn and pace to get around the pitch quickly, and he tends to be shoehorned, doesn't he? He either sits very, very deep like he did when Gus Poyet was manager, or like we saw under Sam Allardyce last year, he kind of played as a number 10 a lot of the time.
Yeah, his passing ability as well as passing accuracy can leave a lot to be desired. I mean, he's a bit hit and miss with it, isn't he? Sometimes you can see him sling a ball through like an awesome through ball at like 30 yards, and sometimes you see him kick it straight at the defender. So
you mean him try out a Jan Kirchhoff against what was it, against Arsenal? Remember that ball that Jan Kirchhoff did? It was against Arsenal at the Stadium of Light last season. Kirchhoff, from his own third, produces a brilliant cross ball through for Jermaine Defoe, and it lands to him perfectly. Yeah, Cattermole, I can't see Cattermole doing passes like that, but still.
Just a quick one then. Good luck to those lads on Monday. And with regards to that, Everton, how are we all feeling about that?
I'll just put my hand up first on this one.
Go on, Gav.
I'm cautiously optimistic, and I don't know why. I might be proven to be a fool after this goes live, and maybe people will.
I think you're entitled to. I think that's us, isn't it? That's just Sunderland fans in general, cautiously optimistic.
I think I made a point last week on the site, actually, in an article talking about whether or not Kazri should play. I made a point that pretty much the bar in the back four, the midfield and attack that I expect to play against Everton have been on Sunderland all the way through the international break, and they've had a lot of time to work together, which I think has been one of the key things from the start of the season. We haven't been able to pick a settled team, and that for me is the big thing coming into tomorrow's game and coming out of it as well. Sunderland have to start being more consistent with the teams we pick. I know we haven't been able to do that because of injuries, but obviously when we've had, what's it now, 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks to work with a bunch of players who are finally getting their feet, or finally find their feet, sorry, and working together on the training ground, we've got to take advantage of it. So for me, the fact we've trained together for 2 weeks and the likes of Linden Gooch can get back into position, Pienaar can get more fit, I guess. Kirchhoff might start, but for me it tells us that the time on the pitch could prove to be vital. Time on the training pitch could prove to be vital in the game against Everton. Although they've signed some very good players, I'm hoping that the determination to get that first win will be what sees us through. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I always am, to be honest. But when I get to the game and we're 1-0 down after 10 minutes, I'll soon change my mind.
I'll tell you what excites me though, Gav.
Turn into 2 and then 3 and then 4. I'm going to continue, mate.
I tell you who excites me on this game is definitely Pickford. If you look at Everton's lineup, if you go and you research all the statistics surrounding them, they play this possession-oriented game. They have like over 60% of the possession in a lot of their games, but they play with 3 at the back, and we play. Well, recently we've tend to try and play with like a loose front 3. So I only think Jordan Pickford could be the key to this game. I think his distribution could really make or break how we play. If he can get the ball into those dangerous areas quickly and get the likes of Januzaj and Defoe up against Jagielka, Ashley Williams, I think our pace in the final third could really, really hurt Everton. You look at their midfield, I mean, Idrissa Gana Gueye has been an absolutely fantastic signing for them, but he's supported by Gareth Barry. Not as mobile whatsoever. If we can harass them enough in the middle and we can get them into the dangerous positions quickly, I think possession won't play a big part of that game. Structurally, we look very sound under David Moyes. I think you're definitely right. I honestly think we could spring a surprise here if we get our game plan right.
Certainly, I can see Duncan Watmore receiving the ball and moving quickly down the wing. Do you know what I mean? Straight past Williams. I can't see him having a chance against Duncan Watmore. And Januzaj, actually, if you're looking at our real attacking threats, I mean, there's a strong possibility that Defoe will be caught offside, because as we know, he plays off the shoulder, and that's one of his many talents, is being caught offside as well as scoring. Certainly with slow centre backs, that could prove to. I'm not even sure, actually. I don't know if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing. What do you reckon? Better to play in that sort of role against ageing, slower centre backs, or would that mean?
I wouldn't say Ashley Williams was any slouch. He's not the quickest centre half, but not many are. But he isn't a slouch. No, but I think Jermaine Defoe will score goals against any team. He's shown that since he arrived here. I don't think it matters who's really playing. If we put the chances on a plate for him, he's going to score goals. He's not the type of striker who's going to run onto a through ball and smash it in first time. What he will do is he'll play off the shoulder, get into good positions, and it's more about Sunderland's attacking midfield players getting on the ball and putting them in good areas. We don't do it enough. We didn't last season, even when we were form improved under Allardyce. We didn't create enough chances. We haven't created enough chances this season, but we do have the quality there for me. If Januzaj starts games, he's going to create 2 or 3 chances a game, which lead to chances. That's why he starts. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to bring him up too much, but we had another player like that last year who, left under odd circumstances, but he kind of reminds us of him. He's a similar player. He's not going to. He might have 10 runs at a full-back with a ball, and 8 of them might be unsuccessful, but 2 of them he'll create you a chance. And he's the type of player who isn't scared to be expressive on the ball. Sunderland, unfortunately, aren't gifted with 3, 4, 5, 6 of those players like a lot of teams are. So Januzaj starts, and if he plays well, then we score goals. Simple as that. Simple as that. And unfortunately for us, he's not our player, but he is for a year. Let's make the most of him, you know.
Exactly. I would think at the same time, though, if you're gonna, I mean, I do think Jan and I have been crucial to this game. The one thing I would say, though, do not let him take set pieces.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a couple of points I was going to make. The first thing is, I do, on Gav's point earlier about the fact you need to get team consistency together. Completely agree. But I think also people do need to remember that the starting 11 we played against Southampton looked a lot more stronger. It looked a lot more like our first team. And what happens? We come away with a point. Okay, it should have been 3, but you get something away from home. That I think generally I would have took that before the Southampton game. But, you know, the defence apparently looked relatively solid. We got some chances, got forward. And you're going to have a decent... For me, if we are going to win this game, we need a clean sheet. But I know for a fact we're probably not going to keep one, because I do think Everton's got some very dangerous attackers. But that being said, you know, Ronald Koeman's has always had this possession-style football. And let's be honest, have Sunderland ever really dictated possession in a Premier League game? I think we're used to seeing opposition teams pass the ball around us to death. So I think we just need to be... I think it's important that the home fans, even if it's 0-0 and we're sitting back, don't get frustrated too much, because this is Everton. I mean, I know they're not Manchester City, they're not Chelsea, they're not one of the big guns, but they're still a good side. They're still a better team than we are, and I think they are going to have a lot of possession. But it proves, like, I don't want to mention Newcastle too much, but when we played them at the Stadium Light last season, they had about probably, I don't know, 3/4 of the possession, but they lost 3-0 because we took our chances, because we didn't have much of the ball. So it just got, if you don't have many good chances, then having the possession all in the world just means nothing as far as the scoreline's concerned. I think what's important for us, we keep a solid shape, and then as cliche as it sounds, get a chance, take it. And I think we could really do with going in front tomorrow. I think we could really do with getting the first goal, because the one thing that worries me is that we rarely come from behind to get a win. Although I think we did against Chelsea last year, if I remember correctly, but that was the first time in a couple of years that we've gone behind in a league game and come back to win. So, but if we go 1-0 down, don't let it become 2 or 3. Stay in it. I mean, to be fair, we did that against City. Sorry, Gav, I keep interrupting you.
No, sorry, mate. I'll make one point really. This is what the 4th league game of the season. It's a long season. So, and as I said earlier, Sunderland have to make themselves harder to beat. If we come out of the game with a point, then we can't really grumble, because we haven't started particularly well. We haven't been able to find our feet as a team. We haven't been able to pick a consistent lineup. So if we can keep grinding out results, a point's better than nothing. If we get it, great. If we win, even better. But after this game, we've got Tottenham away, and we're not going to be expected to win anything there, are we? So after that, obviously we've got Palace and West Brom, 2 relatively decent home games, I'd say. So if we're going to kick on this year, we have to look one game at a time. Everton at home is a difficult game. I know it wasn't last season, but I think it will be this year, just with the recruitment they've had and the manager they've got. He's going to be looking at Sunderland as a big scalp, really. They're going to want to come here and get 2 or 3 goals in the back of the net. And we really can't grumble at getting points against teams like Everton. So if it's a draw, it's a draw. I think we just have to make sure we get out that first 45 minutes unscathed, and then maybe look at hitting them later in the game if we are going to score goals. So, I mean, like I say, we could get to Tuesday and Wednesday when people may be listening to this late. We could get to Tuesday or Wednesday, and we could be, we could have egg on our faces. We might come out of this, and have been battered, but really the point still stands. This is a long old season. We're 4 games in.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're gonna play Everton again. We're gonna play every team in the league. So, let's not dwell on it too much if we don't get the points we need. Let's just focus on the positives, which are obviously getting the new players involved, getting players back fit, and obviously picking up the results in the more winnable games against Palace and West Brom. I mean, if we can do that, then great.
Slow and steady, temper the enthusiasm. Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. It's been taking lessons from David Moyes, this one, hasn't it? It's taking all those pressures to heart. Like, don't be optimistic.
It would just,
do you know what it is?
Wouldn't it?
It's been a dose of reality to me as well, though, because obviously I'm used to being fairly, let down by my club. But I mean, I think since Sam Allardyce came in, it's made me take a step back and realise that what we are in this league is a team which everybody else sees as a winnable game. Even from the promoted sides to the ones sitting around the bottom to the top, every team in this league, when they play Sunderland, expects that they're going to get something out of the game. So that has to always be at the back of our minds when we're going to the match. Simple as that. We'll play Everton. They're going to come. They're going to try and hit us on the break. They're going to try and dominate possession. And if we can get out the first 45 minutes, even the first hour at 0-0, that's when you reevaluate. You use your plan B. Do you need to get someone else on up front? Do you need to get some pace on out wide? And obviously in the next game against Spurs, it's going to be exactly the same. They're a similar sort of style to Everton, and we are a scalp in this league. Simple as that. So if our game plan has to reflect what the other teams are going to come and do. If we try to go out and dominate possession in games, we're going to get battered. We know that for a fact, because we're not strong enough in that sense. But if we try and stay organised, like most David Moyes teams are, stay organised and take the chances that we do create, then yeah, we'll pick points up. But Everton aren't going to come here and play for a draw. Let's be honest.
No, of course not.
To be honest, even when teams have come up here and played for a draw, we never seem to win anyway. So but I mean, at the same time, I think for me, if we get a point tomorrow, I know I'm sounding very pessimistic, I'd probably take a draw, because if you look at it in context, even of the table at this early stage, a draw would take us only what was in 1 point of 17th and probably 2 points off of 11th or 12th. So it's not. I mean, obviously a win would be fantastic, but realistically, I think it'll probably be a draw, and at the minute, I would probably take it, because, like Gav said, I think I'd look at the. I think if you looked at the start of the season, I know that Middlesbrough were just promoted, but that was the game for me. That it's like Gav said, when teams look at us as a game as a winnable game. I saw Middlesbrough as a winnable game, but obviously the rest of the fixtures, Man City away, need I say more? Then we were very unlucky to lose it. Southampton, I thought, we'll get a point there, not the end of the world. Everton, difficult team. Tottenham as well. Really, the first proper winnable game after Borough is probably Palace and probably West Brom. So I think for this game, I think it's important we don't get beat rather than if we win. And like Gav said, after this, you've got 34 league games after this. So I think context is important. But I just hope, like I said, if we can just get through the early stages, don't concede. Everton are going to have a lot of the ball because they're a much better ball possession team than us, a better team than us generally. If we stay, as long as we compete and don't roll over if we go behind, then, I'm sounding like I'm resigned to going behind already now. But
so we'd be happy to get a Gus Poyet-esque style run, basically, for the next 5 or 6 games, would we?
What?
No, I disagree.
I
disagree. Just looking at things from a different perspective, try and put a little bit of upswing on proceedings. If you look at this like statistically, team versus team, which isn't always the exact way things will happen, but Everton like to have over 50% of the possession. Sunderland like to sit back, soak the pressure up, hit teams on the break. If you look at our shots created, chances created, shots on target, Everton and ourselves are very similar. We don't necessarily need the ball to be threatening, which somebody like Jermaine Defoe, Adnan Januzaj gift us. Thankfully, we have that opportunity that we normally wouldn't have. So for me, I genuinely think this is I don't want to say it's a winnable game. I definitely think we have the potential to win this game. Just one, because I think we can exploit their system, which people have kind of been. It's only them and Watford are kind of using that 3-5-2 system right now. I think we can exploit that. Guaranteed Jermaine Defoe is going to get chances. When he gets a chance, 1 in 3 of them normally tends to go in. And I think, you look at the David Moyes effect versus old club, Jack Rodwell against his old club, Stephen Pienaar against his old club. I think there's going to be something about tomorrow night's game that would normally be different to this fixture. And personally, I'm normally a glass half empty kind of guy, and I just hope for the best. But tomorrow, for some bizarre reason, maybe it's the couple of afternoon beers I've had, I don't know. But yeah, I feel a little bit like excited about tomorrow.
I tell you what, Tom, slip those beers in Everton's dressing room, eh? Make sure they're go on, lads.
Right, well, I suppose that'll be it then. So we're looking quite optimistically towards the next few games. Realistically and optimistically, we're sort of tempered, aren't we? All right, good times. Well, thanks for joining me tonight, lads, on the Roker Rapport. Next week, hopefully everyone else will join us, and yeah, for the second episode, that'd be good times. Thanks very much for listening. Everyone had a good time?
Yeah, very much so.
groovy. Well, cheers for joining me, lads. And, yeah, take care. How are the lads?
Away.